Hey folks, Coach Patrick here, back with another weekly check-in videocast podcast. That's right, it's time for that coach talk, the time when I sit down and give you some information here. Basically, inside the team, our priority is to make sure that you are the smartest athlete you can possibly be. Smarter athletes are not only faster, better looking, and have more fun, but you just end up with better outcomes overall. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we're looking for here. Not just incremental gains, but step change gains as well. And the topic for today is a little bit different in terms of how we process information that comes into the system and how we make decisions about that. And what I'm talking about specifically here from my outdoor studio, thanks for bearing with me. I just put this up over the weekend. What we're talking about here today is mid-season gear check-in. Not a sexy topic, like nothing sexy about checking in on your gear. But here's the story. When you don't check in on your gear, what happens? Your gear checks on you. And you know what happens? It breaks, right? So your feet hurt and the shoes are out, right? You're riding your bike, boom, like the rim's gone. The spokes are wonky. People are like, I can't believe it. My chain just shattered into a million pieces this weekend. Like, how could that ever happen to me? Well, it happens when you don't do any maintenance or check in on your equipment. So there's two types of athletes that live out there, right? There's the person who no, there's three. Okay. So like the 1% of the 1%, the person who does all the maintenance, like cleans their stuff, loves their stuff. That's great. Right. Then we have the person who knows they're supposed to do stuff and they do it sometimes, like every once in a while. They're like, maybe you should clean your bike once a month or once every 2 weeks. This person does it like once every 6 months. So but you don't follow it. Then there's just like totally ignorant Ivan. Ivan has no idea what's going on. Ivan just uses his stuff until it falls apart or somebody like tries to save him, right? Like being like your bike is disintegrating underneath the weight of your body, whatever that may be. So you may fall in any one of those camps, most of you, and this is just statistics, so don't take it personally. I'm not speaking to you, but I'm just saying most of you fall into that third camp. And even if you don't, there's sports that you do where you're totally in the first camp. Love your bike, for example, all about it, taking care of it. But wetsuit, meh. Sneakers, whatevs. Anything else? Weights, gym mat, self-care tools, whatever. Who cares, right? And those things will come back to haunt you at the end of the day. One of the biggest things that lags endurance athletes back from their potential isn't genetics or whatever people say. It's really just a function of unscheduled time off, disruptions in your block. Sometimes it comes from overtraining and we need rest. That makes sense, right? That's easy. What isn't great is when our bike breaks and we're 3 weeks without a bike, or when we get injured overuse on the running side, we got to take 4 weeks off from running. That kind of stuff has long-term downstream impact. Can you get it back? For sure. But in the meantime, and what could you have been had you not lost that time? So indulge me here with a little bit of mid-season gear check-in to make sure we're good, okay? 5 things you need to check on. The top 5 things that I see most of all as your coach here inside Endurance Nation. Number 1, your run shoes are toast. Almost everyone here is running or doing something weight-bearing, and the shoes are toast. They don't make shoes like they used to, and that kind of goes on and on and on. So the lighter your shoes, the faster your shoes, the newer your shoes, the fancier your shoes, the more expensive your shoes, if they fit into any one of those categories or all of those categories, odds are they're made out of like hyper foam that only lasts so long and is going to die, and you have to watch out. So what used to last you 500 miles may only last you 300 miles because it's new and improved, right? And so when we think about what it means to be a healthy runner, a huge part of that is checking in on that run gear. So know when you bought it, know when you hit about 250 miles in it, right? Give or take. And set that reminder. If you average 20 miles a week, you got about 3 months, give or take, to the time you need to start shopping for some new shoes. Don't let the shoes dictate when you need to get new shoes. Just when you buy the new pair of shoes, set a reminder. Remind me in 3 months, 12 weeks to buy new pairs of shoes. And you can at least check in. Don't just arbitrarily go buy, but go look at the bottom of your shoes, see how things are going, right? Okay. Number 2, the rear tire on your bike is toast. This is so common, especially when people are using wheel-on trainers. But regardless, the rear wheel takes so much of a beating from your body on it that it wears down faster than the front tire. But we only see our front tire when we're riding. So we're riding, we look at our front tire, and we're like, hey, things look good. Like the bike seems to be okay. You're not looking at anything that's behind you, like that rear tire, which takes out beating, right? And not just from the tire itself, but the whole infrastructure there and that rear side as well can get really, really damaged. So do yourself a favor. Again, every 6 months, just a new rear tire, especially if you use a wheel-on trainer. If you don't use a wheel-on trainer, then just give yourself a new tire once a year. Generally speaking, I recommend doing it in the springtime when you move to the outside. It should last you through the rest of the year and then into the winter as well. You can get away with it on the winter, especially with a wheel-on trainer. And of course, you'll have a race tire at some point in time as well, if that's like your sort of level of racing. But at the end of the day, don't let the multiple flats and issues get in your way. Just set that reminder. Just do it, right? Remind me in 6 months, remind me in 12 months, buy a new tire. Done. Simple, easy, good, right? Great. While you're at it, buy an extra one just so you have one. So in 12 months or 6 months, you can put the new one on and order the next one, right? Get ahead of it, right? Great. Next one, staying with the theme of the bike, your cassette chain or your cassette chain combo, totally toast. So when you take it to the bike shop, they'll take a look at the problem that you have. And while they're there, they'll say, oh, I'm going to use my special calipers here to measure the distance between chain links because the chains get stretched out over time. And they'll put it in there and be like, whoa, my God, how are you still riding? Of course, it feels like a little kind of scammy, but the truth is it does make a big difference. When your chain stretches out, and it will stretch out faster than your cassette will wear down, it really starts to wear down your cassette. And at some point in time, you can't just simply swap that chain. Now you need to swap the chain and the cassette. And that's a lot more expensive. You can make that cassette last longer if you change that chain out. Now it's up to you how often you want to change that chain. I recommend doing it at least once a year. If you're putting on, 5,000 or 10,000 miles or something crazy on that bike, then you may want to change it out twice a year, especially if you're sort of in that crazy, like in real life riding and Zwift riding, especially on that same chain. If you've got an indoor bike and an outdoor bike, you can get away with both once a year. But either way, do it right. Make sure that you know exactly the chain that you're ordering. If it's a 12-speed or an 11-speed, if it's SRAM or if it's Shimano, all of that really matters. So do the due diligence on the bike that you're riding. Make sure you order the right part for that bike. Been there, done that. And then all you need is a chain breaker to go through and just resize the chain. Take the old one off, put it down on the floor, lay it all out, get the new one, lay it all out, measure them up. We're pretty good. You want to be like a little shorter than the old one because the old one's a little stretched out. And we'll put that back on the bike, put it together with a quick link. Good as new, right? Great. All right. Number 4, your bike needs a once-over. This is so true. People hate going to the mechanic, but the truth is we want someone else other than you, someone who's a professional, or at least someone who works on bikes all day, which makes them a professional compared to you who only works on one bike and only once every 6 months, to just give it a once-over, see what's going on. Maybe you need new bar tape. Maybe the components need some updating or love. Maybe it just needs a renewal. Maybe there's something wrong with the frame. A good bike mechanic will kind of take a look at everything, and it's worth giving your bike a once-over. I recommend doing this either at the beginning or the end of the year. So end of the summer into the winter, because not a lot of winter damage is going to happen, or end of winter into summer, getting ready for new components, getting outside, etc. Especially if you're doing that dual purpose stuff with the bike, riding indoors and riding outside with it. Really want to make sure that we're taking the time to ensure that our bike is functioning properly. And again, bikes are really strange in terms of the cascading problems you have. So the shifting, if you've got poor shifting, that really degrades the chain and the rear derailleur, which then even when you fix your shifting, still won't sound great. And you need to fix the shifting and the cassette and the chain all at the same time if you just aren't on top of it. So do the right thing. Take your bike in once a year and you pay $100, whatever it is, just get it, take a look at someone, clean up the things, clean up the chain, get you 100% ready to go. It makes a massive difference for you. If you're riding disc brakes, get the hydraulics taken care of, all the good stuff to make sure you're 100% on track. All right, great. Last but not least, this is important, but it's not necessarily a wear down issue, but it's your emergency stuff. The stuff we only use in an emergency. More often than not, the vast majority of us don't run into problems every time we ride or run, right, or swim, but they happen. And when they do happen, we take the stuff out of our secret magic supply bag and we fix things or whatever. We're great to go. We save our workout. Life is good. But do we ever really replace that stuff inside that emergency bag? Is everything really there? Do you have everything you really need to fix that flat tire? Like the whole thing, or a tube, or a boot, like a piece of an old tire you need to put in there in case something gets slashed? What are the things that you have to make sure that you're in a good space should something go wrong? Odds are these items are either used and gone or out of date because you haven't had an issue in so long. Don't fall into that camp. When you have an emergency that's really, not really an emergency, you could fix it yourself, which, sort of makes that whole emergency term kind of debatable. But if you don't have the things to fix it, then it doesn't really matter, does it? Because you're still out of luck. You're still stuck on the side of the road. So do yourself a favor once a year. Again, generally, I like springtime for this one. Check in on all your equipment setup. Make sure you've got CO2, tire levers. Make sure you've got, laces on those shoes. Make sure you've got everything charges well. Everything works. Updated all the firmware and everything. Like, do all the due diligence there on the front end to make sure we can have a frictionless transition into the full year and have a block of sort of great training leading into your races and so on. But all of it takes a little bit of attention to detail. So I just gave you 5 things. You may have more. And if you want to share whatever comes to front of mind for you, put it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, really take the time to just take a look at what's gone wrong for you in the past and then identify those areas. So the flip side of this conversation is a little more personal, where you say like, hey, what keeps breaking for you? What keeps going wrong for you? And if that's the issue, how do we take care of it and make sure it doesn't happen again, right? Especially if it happens recurring to you, then it's a problem that you need to address and you're sort of avoiding it by spending money, time, or just taking time off to accommodate the changes and challenges you run into. Simply because you don't want to address the root cause of whatever those issues may be. Take the time to do it right. There's nothing wrong with building a new process that allows you to step forward, building fitness, avoiding interruptions, keeping your equipment up to date, and building a block of training time that will allow you to reach your peak fitness and times to race to your potential. All right. I hope you enjoyed this talk. Coach Patrick here signing off with our mid-season gear check-in. If there's some parts of gear that I didn't talk about or things that you should consider changing, whether it's for ultra running or ultra swimming or mountain biking or gravel riding or something I didn't normally talk about, drop it in the comments or reach out to me here inside Endurance Nation. We'd love to hear from you, and I'll be sure to add it to our next video or podcast. All right. Have a great week, everyone. Make sure, take your time. Just take a look. Check all the gear. Just why not be safe, right? Just be prepared. All right. See you, folks. Take care.